traded as far from Rome to Persia to China and Japan. He rewrote the trade routes of Asia of the ancient world. 1,000 years later, we are back at the same crisis because India once again faces economic strangulations. They are not warships, but make no mistake, they are choke points designed to break economies. Shocking diplomatic insult. Srivijaya even tried to paint the Cholas as their subordinates. What if Rajendra Chola had to deal with Donald Trump's tariffs? Right now, the US is back at doing what it can do at best. Be the bully in the room by slapping high tariffs on Indian goods, pushing the rates as high as 50%. But for Trump, this is just bullying in the name of trade. But this isn't the first time Indian trade has faced such a hard blow. In fact, this pattern is so old that if you rewind exactly 1,000 years, you will find the same playbook being used. Only the names have changed. Then it was China's Song Dynasty and its proxies, and today it is the United States. Different players, the game is same. There was one man 1,000 years ago had already cracked the code to how to deal with this. His name was Rajendra Chola. This is the story of the emperor who didn't just expand the empire, he rewrote the trade routes of Asia of the ancient world with an extraordinary naval campaign so bold that even after a millennium, you have got a lot to learn and implement from it. So today's thought experiment is this. What if Rajendra Chola had to deal with Donald Trump's tariffs? What if the best strategy for beating a modern day trade blockade can be found in some forgotten tactics of 1,000-year-old Indian empire? On July 2025, Prime Minister Modi visited the Grand Shiva Temple at Gangaikonda Cholapuram in Tamil Nadu, paying homage to Rajendra Chola on the 1000th anniversary of his coronation. 1,000 years later, we are back at the same crisis because India once again faces economic strangulations designed by foreign powers. Back in the 11th century, no empire in Southeast Asia was affluent or more powerful than Srivijaya, which is today Malaysia and Indonesia. It controlled the bottleneck trade passages between the east and the west, the Strait of Malacca and the Sunda Strait. It was year 1025 Bharat. The massive Chola Empire flourished under Rajendra Chola I. He understood something important. Trade was equal to military power. Multinational merchant guilds like today's MNCs, the Ayyavole 500, the Manigramam, traded as far from Rome to Persia to China and Japan. These guilds had global ambitions, but their access to the Chinese trade was being choked off by the monopoly and extortion of Srivijaya's endless taxes. Also, in a shocking diplomatic insult, Srivijaya even tried to paint the Cholas as their subordinates in the Chinese court. The economic pressure was escalating, profits drying up, and the disrespect was strong. Rajendra was not an emperor who could be sidelined, and the merchants were global corporations. It was time to rewrite history by force. The Malacca Strait was the most heavily defended point in the whole Srivijayan Empire. They had their entire navy ready waiting for an obvious knock on the front door. But Rajendra Chola wasn't a conventional thinker. This is what we can learn, the trap being set for him. He knew attacking Srivijaya at their strongest point was like a suicide mission. He decided to take the backdoor entry to tear the whole house down from inside. And this makes it one of the greatest naval campaigns in history. These warships were capable of carrying troops, war machines, horses, and even elephants. But instead of sailing east towards Malacca, they crossed the Bay of Bengal, resupplied secretly at Barus, a Tamil-friendly port, and then swung south to enter the Sunda Strait, Srivijaya's poorly guarded backyard near modern-day Jakarta. The surprise was absolute. Srivijayan Navy, sitting pretty at Malacca, waited for an attack that never came. They were like the bouncers standing at the wrong nightclub. What happened next was a strategic decapitation, a naval shock and awe. The campaign was all about a series of super-fast raids designed to decimate Srivijaya's economic power. Rajendra Chola didn't just defeat Srivijaya, he broke the monopoly to redraw the economic map of Asia. That victory changed the flow of trade in Asia forever, and it is this idea, strategic disruption, that holds the key for us today. We are about to connect this ancient masterclass to modern world of tariffs. But before we do, if you are finding this link between history and modern strategy fascinating, hit the subscribe button and do share this video. Now, tariffs today. They are not warships, but make no mistake, they are choke points designed to break economies. So what can a naval campaign from 1,000 years ago teach us about something as boring and complex as economic policy? When you face an unbreakable economic barrier, the solution isn't to play by the rules. It is to create a whole new game. Rajendra didn't try to negotiate for a lower tax rate. He didn't even try to smash his way through the most guarded choke point. Instead, he did something much smarter. He found the very source of Srivijaya's power, and he launched a calculated move that made the whole blockade completely non-existent. First, strategic misdirection, the Sunda Strait maneuver. Don't waste time fighting at the choke point. If a huge tariff is slapped on the goods from India, then don't bang your head against Washington's wall. Instead, rapidly move into new geographies which have comparatively better deal for the time being. India is already diversifying. Free trade agreement with UK, Japan, Australia, UAE, African and South American nations. The BRICS alliance is growing stronger every other day, and even the arch rivals like India and China are finding a common cause to rebuild their relations. And this is pushing for a mega Russia-India-China partnership. Second, decisive action, the lightning raid. Once you have found out the alternate route, the strategy demands bold and fast action, decisive investments and partnerships in the new markets, technologies and logistics to lock in a competitive advantage before the tariffs can even start to impact. The idea is simple. Create a new reality before your opponent adjusts. Third, disrupting the center of gravity, shattering the monopoly. The ultimate goal is to make the original tariff totally irrelevant. Srivijaya's monopoly was built on this assumption that all trade has to pass through their taxes. Just like the US thinks that global trade has to pass through the US dollar. The Chola raids proved that the assumption was absolutely wrong. The modern version is to break the core assumption of the tariff itself and make it look obsolete. From the Indian side, there are two decisive actions taking place at this moment. Number one, massive push for domestic oil exploration, gold mining, nuclear minerals across the territorial boundary of India, the potential of which is so huge, It can even cancel out the need to import from outside, slashing out the dependence on dollar. And number 2, Reserve Bank of India has quietly opened the door for the BRICS nation and other partner countries to settle their trade fully in Indian rupees, no longer using the US dollar as the default settlement currency. This means companies abroad can keep an Indian currency in their Vostro accounts and do business directly in rupees. 1000 years ago, Rajendra Chola didn't accept being squeezed. It teaches us that economic barriers are built with blind spots. Yet they trick us into focusing all our energy on their strongest point. The path to victory isn't to fight the barrier head on. It is the key to find a new path, act with blinding speed, and change the rule of the game completely, that the barrier becomes completely obsolete. Share this story because history isn't just for textbooks. Sometimes history becomes the playbook for survival.